Coachella Valley, and welcome to Live with Your Chamber. I'm your host, Katie Stice, CEO at the Rancho Mirage Chamber of Commerce, and we have an incredible episode for you today. Please tune in, save this video, share it with your staff, your managers. We're going to be talking about new labor laws of 2022. And at the Chamber, I think we realize you are so busy, all of you business owners out there, working in your jobs and managing what you can, that sometimes it's difficult to keep up on all of the changes in labor laws year after year. So we are truly blessed to have an incredible, I'm just going to call her an icon. Karen Sloat is an amazing local attorney that works so hard and diligently. We work right with her and have for years. And she's going to really spell out these new employment laws, help you to understand them. So again, make sure you tag this video, share it with those who also need to know. We want to make sure everyone is staying within compliance. So with that, let's bring out our guest today. Karen Sloat, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you, Katie. I'm fine today. Thanks a lot. And you?
Oh, I'm good. Thank you. And we so appreciate you being here today. This is something I feel really lucky that you offer your expertise every year to really help the community. So first and foremost, thank you for doing that.
You're very welcome. I'm happy to be back.
Well, we appreciate it. And with that, I'm going to put up two things for you, your website and your general email, so that as you give this presentation and walk folks through the labor laws, if they have questions, concerns, want to learn more about your law firm, they can do so with the information on the screen. But please take it away. What do folks need to know in order to stay in compliance this year with labor laws?
Thanks, Katie, so much. I appreciate this opportunity. We're going to do a crash course in 20 minutes because the labor laws flooded in again this year from the legislature and the governor, and there are a lot to absorb. Some of them are scary. I'm going to give you a heads up. They're scary up front, but we're happy to help you work through them and understand them. What I'm going to do is give you a preview of each one. I may not go into a lot of detail, but if you want more detail, let me know. I'm going to peek at my list because, again, there are many of them. The first one is an overall look at minimum wages for 2022. Of course, most of you know that minimum wage went up to $14 for small employers with 25 or fewer employees, and $15 if you have 26 employees or more. No big deal. However, the exempt salaries also went up. So watch out for that. Salaries must be 2 times the minimum wage for an hourly employee and in order to be exempt from overtime. So let me tell you the salary limits. The minimum is $58,240 for employers with 1 to 25 employees. And if you have 26 or more, you must pay those salaried employees $62,400. That's in order for them to be exempt from overtime, meal periods, rest periods, etc. The federal minimum wage is still $7.25. It went up a couple of years ago. But I do want to keep you apprised that in January 1, 2020, President Biden and the U.S. Department of Labor said that if you don't meet the federal minimum salaries, then you get overtime. So there's one category I want to get you aware of. The highly compensated employees must make at least $107,000 under the federal laws. That's the Fair Labor Standards Act. If you're exempt because of that classification and you don't make $107,000, believe it or not, you get overtime pay. Fascinating.
Wow.
Computer professionals go up to $50 an hour or $8,679.16 per month. $104,149.81 per year. Katie, I think we ought to be computer professionals.
Yes, wrong industry. Hello. Oh, my word. Okay.
That's the minimum.
Yeah.
Licensed physicians and surgeons must get $91.07 per hour, or believe it or not, they are due meal periods, rest periods, and overtime. And that's, of course, leads to penalties. Mm-hmm. Several cities in California actually exceed that minimum wage. I just want to give you a few because they're remarkable. West Hollywood is the highest minimum wage in the country, $17.64 for hotel workers If you're a non-hotel worker, you're at $1,550 currently in West Hollywood. You're going to go up to $1,650 in July. Interesting.
Yeah.
I want to be a hotel worker in West Hollywood, but there are 3 other cities, Emeryville, Mountain View, and Sunnyvale, all starting at over $17 an hour minimum wage.
Mm.
San Diego, FYI, used to be higher than we are, and they used to have a city minimum wage. It was higher than the state. They don't this year, so they are at minimum wage for the state. Quick note on sub-minimum wage. This is fascinating, Katie. Disabled employees that are mentally or physically disabled can be paid less than minimum wage. There are a number of charities in this valley.
Mm-hmm.
Number of them employ disabled persons.
Absolutely.
And if you get a license from the government, you don't have to pay minimum wage. You can pay sub-minimum wage. Most employees make $2.15 minimum per hour if you're in that category across the U.S. under the federal laws. A new California law, Senate Bill 639, will phase out this option for employers. So there are no more licenses being issued. As of 2025, all disabled employees must be paid minimum wage for all hours worked.
Okay.
And there are 7 other states that are abolishing sub-minimum wage.
Okay.
This is the law, Katie. I hope everybody is sitting down, sitting down, watching their YouTube or their Facebook. There's a new law called wage theft, and it is a new crime that was established by Assembly Bill 1003, adds a section to the penal code. That's our crime law in California, such that if an employer intentionally steals, there's an intentional theft of wages of $950 or more per employee, or $2,350 for 2 or more employees over 12 months, that's intentional theft of those wages, then they can be subject to a crime, a misdemeanor, $1,000 penalty, up to a year in jail, plus restitution.
Wow.
And I think that makes some employers very vulnerable who are, for example, not paying after 8 hours or refusing to pay,
Right.
proper rates.
Right. Absolutely.
All right. Now that you're up again. You may remember from 2020 and 2021, there were some new laws governing rounding. Lots of employers use timekeeping methods that round up or down.
Mm-hmm.
They have to be neutral so that the employee and the employer both suffer, if you will, or get an advantage from rounding. There was a law that said that meal periods cannot be rounded. So again, a warning to the employers, don't round meal periods. You'll be penalized for that. And the new law from last year that you need to be aware of is how to calculate overtime premiums, meal period premiums, and rest period premiums. So let's talk about that for a moment. We're gonna let you chew on this for a moment. If overtime is due and isn't paid, there are premiums due. Overtime is calculated at 1.5 times the employee's hourly rate, right? Mm-hmm. And meal period penalties, if your employee misses a meal period or a rest period any day, you're supposed to pay them 1 hour of pay for each missed meal or rest period. Here's the challenge. As of last year, and this year, of course, meal periods and rest period premiums and overtime must be calculated at what is called the regular rate of pay. It may not be the person's hourly rate. Mm-hmm. In other words, if they get commissions or incentives or other benefits or differential pay, shift differential pay, those kinds of things need to be factored into the rate that you use to pay overtime and meal period and rest period violations. And that means, unfortunately, that if you have calculated those rates at regular rate, the regular hourly rate, you may have to go back. That's right. And correct those. So get some legal advice on that one. That's a brand new case. Reimbursement of business expenses changed in 21 to 22. As you may imagine, more employees moved home. Mm-hmm. And we are seeing a lot of litigation on unreimbursed business expenses. Mm-hmm. So keep in mind, employers, as you think about an employee working remotely, if they have printer expenses, ink expense, pens, paper, internet, and cell phone expense, those are the biggies, they need to be reimbursed. And if you intentionally don't reimburse those amounts, that could lead to that intentional wage theft crime.
Wow. Which includes jail time, which is, yeah, it's a pretty big deal.
Horrifying. Yeah, horrifying. Okay, the next one is that the Labor Commissioner has established a right to lien employers' property. So get this, the Senate Bill 572 created a wage lien. If the Labor Commissioner issues an order that an employer must pay a wage amount to an employee, and the employer does not pay, the commissioner can go after their real property. Now, what I'm thinking about, Katie, is for small employers, that may mean your home.
Right.
You know,
Wow.
not a commercial building.
Right.
So that's also gives one pause.
Mm-hmm.
Contractor violations. For those who are contractors, subcontractors, whether you're in construction or non-construction, if you are a contractor, existing laws for misclassifying employees as contractors who work for you were $5,000 to $15,000 per violation or for multiple violations. Those have just gone up. So they go up to $8,000 per violation, and the maximum is now $30,000
Oh, weird.
for violation for calling someone a contractor when they're employees, and that's especially in the construction industry. But the $30,000 does apply if an employer does not have workers' compensation coverage
Okay.
and misclassifies. Because
Right.
of course those folks are not covered for their injuries.
That's right.
The other biggie is California Senate Bill 727 holds a general contractor liable for all of its subcontractors' violations. All wage violations by a subcontractor. So if they misclassify workers,
Mm-hmm.
if they don't pay their workers all that is due, the general contractor can be liable. And that goes for, believe it or not, employees and contractors. So even if someone's called a contractor,
Right.
they
Wow.
can be hit with that. Here's another scary one. Senate Bill 606 expands the authority of OSHA. That's the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, Cal OSHA. You may have heard of it.
Mm-hmm.
So for safety violations, if you have a spill or an unsafe condition that's reported, if the employer doesn't get it repaired properly and immediately, the employer is now going to be subject to many more fines and penalties. There are two more violations that were just created by this new law: enterprise-wide violations and egregious violations. So, for example, if you have multiple locations and you have a safety violation like improper COVID protocols,
Sure.
or something else, and they find it at one location, but they determine that you've had it at other locations, the penalties are multiplied not only by your locations, but by every employee subjected to that unsafe condition. So the possible penalties are per employee, per site. And it could be that those exceed hundreds of thousands of dollars very quickly.
Absolutely. Do you think that that has become more strict because of COVID, or was this coming all along?
This is very similar. It's a great question, Katie. This is very similar to in the wage and hour division. We have the Private Attorneys General Act that assigns a penalty for every employee, for every violation, for every pay period. And so I think with COVID, especially with the vulnerability, if employers are not following the COVID rules, then there is much more many more violations for the Cal OSHA enterprise. And I think you're right. And the egregious violations too, if a spill or some very dangerous condition is apparent in one location, the OSHA department can fine over and over by the day that violation is not repaired.
Wow. Well, thank you for expanding on that. Appreciate it.
Sure. It could be up to $134,000 per violation. It's just terrifying to me. Yes. There are some interesting new laws in wages, wage and hours as well. Piece rate. Piece rate is when you get paid by the piece, that you either a widget that you put through its assembly line, or in our valley, often in the East Valley, we have people paid by the piece if they fill a bin of lemons. So they get paid by the bin of lemons. etc. And piece rate legislation is now changed so that California Senate Bill 62 amends the labor code as to garment manufacturers. And you may think, well, there aren't any in the Valley. Well, garment manufacturers include all those who dye, alter, prepare a garment's design, and affix a label to a garment. Any garment manufacturer is jointly liable with all the others if they don't pay piece rate properly. And now all piece rate payments must be subject to a collective bargaining agreement. You may say, what am I talking about, Karen? The collective bargaining agreement means you must have a union. If any garment manufacturers want to pay a piece rate, they must have a union and the collective bargaining agreement. And the penalties assessed are per pay period for each employee. 2022 brought some interesting quota legislation. This may not apply to many, so I'll go quickly through this. But the California Assembly Bill 701 held that warehouse fulfillment and distribution centers, you may think of some big folks who do that, the Amazons, the other folks who process a lot of packages, with 100 or more employees in one location or 100 total employees at numerous locations, must have a written quota that they provide to each employee, and the writing must describe the adverse effects of not keeping up with the quota. If you don't give the employees a writing, you can't punish them for not meeting the quota. Interesting. And that's to protect employees from unsafe conditions and missing their meal and rest periods, that kind of thing.
Sure.
Chain pharmacies, chain community pharmacies having 75 or more stores are also prohibited from establishing quotas that pharmacists must meet unless they follow Senate Bill 362. So I think that's fascinating too. We all know those big pharmacies, and now the pharmacists are working so hard without techs and without assistance.
Yep.
And now they're going to get a break.
Yeah, absolutely. And on that point, there are a few that are just closing here and there, from time to time, or they're changing their hours because they're so short-staffed. And so we can see and feel that impact still happening right now.
Right.
Yeah.
If you've ever walked into a pharmacy in the last couple of years, the pharmacist looks really stressed out.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this is good information to have, but I can't say it's all great information, but you know what I mean. It's nice to be armed with it. Thank you for bringing it to us. For folks out there who, are listening to this and maybe really caught off guard, aren't sure kind of where to start, they don't want to get in trouble. What are some of the steps that they can take to really ensure that their business is safe?
That's great. Okay. I would suggest that if you can't get legal counsel, some people can't afford me, at least be aware of things on the internet. For example, Governor Newsom just announced yesterday that sick leave pay for COVID relief is going to be required for all employers of 26 or more. He just announced it this week. It's on the news. It's not a law. The COVID prevention program is absolutely required for all employers with one employee or more. You and I have talked about that before, Katie. They just amended that again, and that's on the DIR website, www.dir.ca.gov. And all employers should get safe by getting that COVID prevention plan in place.
Mm-hmm. And there are COVID prevention plans as well, all throughout. I mean, if you Google them, there are many to choose from, right?
There may be. The one on the DIR is a fillable form.
Okay.
You can literally fill in your company's name. You don't even have to hire me to do it.
And as far as some other services that you provide, would you just take a couple of minutes and fill us in on some of your specialties and where you can really help businesses stay ahead of some of the issues that are always coming to businesses?
Thank you. Yes, many businesses are being sued because of the mandatory vaccination policy. We're defending those. We're also defending a lot of independent contractor misclassification cases. But we do general workplace solutions, help for employers. We provide handbooks and counseling, personnel forms, termination notices, all of that. We have a whole division on that just to help the community. And of course, we charge for it, but it helps the community a lot to call,
It
like on the
does.
speed dial. And then we do a lot of litigation defense of employers because there's a lot of litigation coming down the pike related to COVID and safety measures.
Well, thank you for that. And for everyone who is out there watching, the information is right on the screen. Please make sure to go to the website, send an email if you have questions. Just a quick testimonial. I've had the pleasure of working with Karen Sloat and her team there, which are remarkable, all of them. And whether it's our handbook, reviewing our bylaws, helping us through employee situations, I'm always pleased with how you and your team handle yourselves and how you give us guidance, advice, and we talk through things. So I just encourage everyone out there to, make sure you're researching, and when and if you can, have legal counsel help you through these things. It takes the guesswork out. It's been a lifesaver. So thanks for all that you do, Karen, and especially coming on year after year to share all of this with us. We really appreciate it.
We'd love to educate. Thank you, Katie, for the testimony too. That's awesome. I appreciate it. We love to help.
You got it, my friend. Stay in touch, stay well, and just thanks again for all that you do.
You too. Thanks, Katie.
We'll
Take
see
care.
you soon. And thanks so much for joining us today. Information is still on the screen. Be sure to reach out. Part of what we do at the Chamber is we love to help make sure that our businesses are really prepared for the year ahead. So we like to do labor law changes, tax law changes, help you get the information that you need in order to be successful. If there's a way that I can help you professionally, help your business, please don't hesitate to reach out. That's what your Chamber of Commerce is here for. We'll see you next time on Live with Your Chamber. Take care, everyone.